In the small village of Akokwa, nestled in the heart of the dense forest, a sense of fear and unease hung in the air. It was a feeling that had become all too familiar to the villagers, who had grown accustomed to living in the shadow of a dark and ominous figure. His name was Gabenga, a tall and imposing man with a wild tangle of dreadlocks that seemed to writhe and twist like living serpents. His eyes gleamed with a malevolent intensity, and his presence seemed to draw the very light out of the air, leaving only an oppressive sense of darkness and foreboding. Gabenga's reputation as a ruthless and merciless terrorizer of the village had spread far and wide, striking fear into the hearts of all who heard his name. He was a man consumed by a singular obsession, his desire for the beautiful and kind-hearted Bella, the daughter of the village chief. Bella was a radiant and lovely young woman, with skin as smooth as polished ebony and hair as black as the night sky. Her eyes sparkled with a warm and gentle light, and her smile could charm the birds from the trees. She was the epitome of innocence and purity, and Gabenga's twisted and corrupted heart was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. For months, Gabenga had been terrorizing the village, burning crops and destroying homes in his quest to claim Bella as his own. The villagers lived in constant fear of his wrath, and many had fled their homes in search of safety and refuge. Despite the danger, Bella's father, the village chief, refused to give in to Gabenga's demands. He knew that to surrender his daughter to the dark and malevolent forces that drove Gabenga would be to condemn her to a life of misery and suffering. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the villagers grew more and more desperate. They knew that they could not hold out against Gabenga's relentless onslaught forever, and many began to whisper among themselves that the only way to restore peace to the village was to sacrifice Bella to the monster that haunted their dreams. But Bella's father refused to listen, and instead called upon the ancient traditions and customs of the village to protect his daughter. He summoned the village elders and the wisest men and women of the community, and together they performed a powerful ritual to ward off Gabenga's evil intentions. The ritual was a complex and intricate dance of words and gestures, accompanied by the beating of drums and the chanting of ancient incantations. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, and the flickering light of candles cast eerie shadows on the walls. As the ritual reached its climax, a blast of energy shot out from the center of the circle, striking Gabenga with the force of a thunderbolt. The dark man stumbled backward, his eyes blazing with fury and his dreadlocks writhing like living serpents. For a moment, it seemed as though the ritual had succeeded in banishing Gabenga from the village forever. But as the days passed, it became clear that the dark man's malevolent influence still lingered, casting a shadow over the village like a dark and foreboding specter. One fateful night, Gabenga struck again, this time with a ferocity and brutality that left the villagers shaken to their core. He crept into the village under the cover of darkness, his eyes blazing with a malevolent intensity as he searched for Bella. The villagers, caught off guard and unprepared for the attack, were powerless to stop Gabenga as he stormed through the village, leaving a trail of destruction and chaos in his wake. Bella, realizing that she was the target of Gabenga's wrath, tried to flee, but the dark man was too quick. He caught her in his grasp, his hands closing around her wrists like vice-like clamps. The villagers, frozen in terror, watched in horror as Gabenga dragged Bella away into the darkness, her screams echoing through the night air as she struggled to break free from his grasp. The next morning, the villagers awoke to find that Bella was gone, and Gabenga was nowhere to be found. A search party was quickly formed, and the villagers set out to track down the dark man and rescue Bella. But as they journeyed deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon a gruesome and horrific sight. Bella's lifeless body lay on the ground, her eyes frozen in a permanent stare of terror, and her skin pale and clammy. The villagers were shocked and horrified by the sight, and they knew that they had to act quickly to bring Benga to justice. They tracked him down to a nearby cave, where they found him feasting on Bella's flesh like a wild animal. The villagers were outraged and disgusted by the sight, and they quickly overpowered Benga, binding him with ropes and chains. They dragged him back to the village, where he was put on trial for his heinous crimes. The villagers, still reeling from the shock of Bella's brutal murder, demanded justice for the young woman who had been taken from them far too soon. Gabenga, his eyes blazing with a malevolent intensity, showed no remorse for his actions. He sneered and taunted the villagers, boasting of his own strength and power. But the villagers would not be intimidated. They stood firm, demanding that Gabenga be punished for his crimes. The village elder, a wise and just man, pronounced the sentence. Gabenga would be banished from the village, forced to roam the forest alone and unaided. The villagers, satisfied that justice had been served, set about the task of rebuilding and healing. They mourned the loss of Bella, but they also celebrated her life and the impact she had had on their community. As for Gabenga, he slunk away into the forest, his malevolent presence fading into the shadows. The villagers, wary of his return, posted guards at the edge of the forest, ready to defend their homes and their families against the dark man's evil intentions. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the villagers began to realize that Gabenga's banishment had not brought them the peace and security they had hoped for. The forest, once a place of wonder and magic, had become a place of fear and dread. The villagers, once confident and self-assured, had become timid and afraid. They whispered among themselves of Gabenga's return, of the evil that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. And then, one night, the unthinkable happened. Gabenga, his eyes blazing with a malevolent intensity, emerged from the forest, his presence seeming to draw the very light out of the air. The villagers, paralyzed with fear, watched in horror as Gabenga began to wreak havoc on their homes and their families. He burned their crops, destroyed their homes, and slaughtered their animals. The villagers, realizing that they had underestimated the depth of Gabenga's evil, knew that they had to act quickly to stop him. They banded together, forming a militia to defend their homes and their families against the dark man's evil intentions. The battle between the villagers and Gabenga was fierce and intense. The villagers, determined to protect their homes and their families, fought with all their might. Benga, his eyes blazing with a malevolent intensity, seemed to be everywhere at once, striking down the villagers with his machete. But despite their bravery, the villagers were no match for Gabenga's superior strength and cunning. One by one, they fell to the ground, their bodies broken and battered. As the last villager fell, Gabenga stood victorious, his chest heaving with exhaustion. He looked around at the destruction he had wrought, a cruel smile spreading across his face. And then, as suddenly as he had appeared, Gabenga vanished into the forest, leaving the villagers to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The villagers, realizing that they had been forever changed by the experience, vowed to never again underestimate the power of evil. They rebuilt their homes and their lives, but they never forgot the lessons they had learned in the darkest depths of the forest. As for Gabenga, his fate remained a mystery. Some said he was still out there, waiting for his next victim. Others said he had been consumed by the very evil that had driven him to commit such atrocities. But one thing was certain: Gabenga's legacy of evil would live on, a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of allowing evil to flourish. Years went by, and the village slowly began to heal. The villagers, though forever changed by their experience, learned to live with the memories of that fateful night. They rebuilt their homes, their lives, and their community. But the legend of Gabenga lived on, a reminder of the evil that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. And though the villagers tried to move on, they could never forget the terror they had faced at the hands of the dark man with the dreadlocks. The story of Gabenga became a cautionary tale, told around campfires and in hushed whispers. It was a reminder of the dangers of evil and the importance of standing strong against it. And though Gabenga himself was never seen again, his legacy lived on, a reminder of the horrors that he had unleashed upon the world. The villagers, though forever changed by their experience, learned to live with the memories of that fateful night. They rebuilt their homes, their lives, and their community, but the legend of Gabenga lived on, a reminder of the evil that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. And, though the villages tried to move on, they could never forget the terror they had faced at the hands of the dark man with the dreadlocks. If you like this video, please click the subscribe button, like, and share for more videos like this.